I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Thursday, April the 5th, and you better hang on to your hat. I tell you what, this market is wild and getting very volatile again, and the wind is blowing hard. If you're in the southern plains, it's hard to be a cowboy when the wind's blowing in the springtime, I tell you what, especially in the Texas Panhandle. But these markets are just whipsawing one way and then back again, although they are making a tad bit of sense. As we talked on our previous visit, that maybe these August live cattle futures were getting undervalued. Well, they tacked that right back on, and it did follow the news from the China tariffs that sent your soybeans, and then the corn went along with it too, but your grains were down sharply, and of course that's going to benefit your feeder cattle, and it did sharply. So but it's a lot to keep up with. When you look at the board on Wednesday, June live cattle futures up $2.70 to end the day at 102.32. April spot fats up $1.05 to end the day at 113.02, which is about $4 below where our market is established right now, although it could be better later this week. But we're squarely within April, and you'd think it would get a little bit closer to that cash market. But that August live cattle futures quote up $2.70 there, and it is now up to 102.60 and back squarely over $1 a pound. Your fat cattle trade nothing's really happened since we had that Tuesday trade, but through Tuesday, 34,800 head in your 5-area feeding region, ranging from 117 to 118, but mostly 117, which is $4 lower at 117.05, which is your weighted average on live steers so far. Your dress trade from 188 to 192, mostly 188. That's $4 lower, and your weighted average on steers dressed through Tuesday at 188.33. No trade to speak of on Wednesday outside of a couple pins on the Fed Cattle Exchange at 117. But the market should be able to work a little bit higher if we don't lose everything we gained on the board later in the week. But guys will be expecting a little bit more money, and some of the guys that held out longer should be rewarded a little bit. But let's talk about how the grains moved. I haven't done a very good job of hiding the fact that I'm a Trump supporter. I know a lot of times the things he does, the things he says makes you scratch your head, but he's doing exactly what we hired him to do. Is he the best in there that we could get? Who knows? But he's working hard. He's stirring things up. He might not be the best guy in the world. He might not really be a nice guy, but the thing of the way it goes is nice guys finish last, and he's going to be a winner, and he's got them stirred up, guys, and he's just crazy enough to keep everybody off balance, so they're not quite sure what he's going to do. Yeah, he's been throwing some tariff talk around, but none of those have been enacted yet. And it's already resulted in some positive trade negotiations. He's talked about doing some tariffs against China trade there to try to get back a little bit of the trade deficit we got going with him. They have not been enacted yet. China has talked about placing some tariffs on some of our products. Those have not been enacted yet either, but they're talking about a 25% tariff on soybeans being one of the products. Yeah, it sent beans down 22 3/4 cents for all of the traded months between May and September for this year's crop. Yeah, that's a jolt. Probably none of this is ever going to come to fruit, and that'll bounce right back up to where it's at. Your corn was down 7.5 on nearby contracts, but just give them a chance. Other products, other industries have been hit from Trump trying to get some of this trade negotiation a little more fair for us, and clean up a little bit of this trade deficit that we've got going on that should have been handled decades ago. But he is working towards the end result, and I think we got to give him a chance on that. But let's look at your slaughter so far for the week. It has been decent compared to a year ago, but not nearly as aggressive as last week, with 339,000 through Wednesday. That was 15,000 off of last week and 1,000 more than the same week a year ago. Your feeder cattle markets is just really, I usually say that your cash feeders don't turn on a dime, but they did this week. They turned on a dime real quick, and the story usually goes with the weather, but it relates to the market this week anyway, and a lot of the time here in the last several years. If you're unhappy with the direction of the cattle market, just wait a few minutes and it'll change. And that's kind of the way it's been going here lately. But your real-time index on Beef Market Central, based on the average, 7-day average between 700 and 899 pound feeder steers up through the 12-state region. Late in the day on Wednesday, set at 135.20. That was up 39 cents. First time it's been up for a while. And that's quite a bit because the average weight arose from 800 pounds up to 802 also. So it could be perceived that that would be a little bit stronger than that. But still light receipts around. OKC West and El Reno, I had very light receipts, only 750 head of calves on Tuesday, and no good test of the market there. Well, the 2-day total was only 3,000 head. A lot of your mom and pop sales can get 3,000 head on a good week. It's just, I tell you what, everybody was just fearful to bring their cattle in. They weren't ready to take prices that were that much lower. That 3,000 head compares to 9,800 head the same week a year ago. But they did have a test of feeder cattle. They had a good enough run there, over 2,000 head. And feeder cattle mostly selling $2 to $4 higher. But they did note that the steers weighing over 850 pounds were fully $6 higher. And that was seen in a lot of the markets that are on the cutting edge. Dodge City, Kansas did not get the memo. They had a lighter run of 2,000 head there, but in early sales, they had quoted their cattle $5 to $9 lower, which we were expecting if we hadn't got the news on the board and on the grains and everything on Wednesday. Huss Platte Valley Market in Kearney, Nebraska, 1,850 head of cattle there, selling fully steady to $3 higher. And I want to give you some individual quotes that'll raise eyebrows again, back to some pretty impressive prices. Of course, you're going to get that in the Sandhills in Nebraska. Bassett, Nebraska, sold 175 head of 601 pound steers right at grass time at $184.75. That's a big price. You go over east a ways into Iowa, Creston, Iowa. They sold 62 head of 664 pound steers at $163.50. That's a big price for the way things are. And then back over there in Kearney, Nebraska at Huss, they sold 2 loads of all black growing yard type steers, so feeder steers carrying some flesh, not stocker cattle, but 2 loads of 761 pound steers there in Kearney, Nebraska at $148.10. That is a whole lot better than what we've seen for the last few weeks. But that's your feeder flash for Thursday.